Welcome, you guys. We're so glad you are with us.
Hey, everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
For
Yes,
reals.
yes.
You guys, welcome to the Seeds Storyteller series with my beloved, amazing sister, Becky Burns. Thank you for being here, coming to us from Florida. And this is an episode of the Storyteller series that is focused on dear friends of mine who are making a difference. We're calling it difference making during the corona crisis. And this conversation is unique because I'm going to be a little more a part of it, because what Becky and I are here to talk about is our shared experience of being COVID long haulers. Some of you may have heard that phrase. If not, we'll unpack it a little bit. But as Becky and I have been talking about this conversation, we were so keen, had this shared keen commitment to, yes, inform what our experience has been, what have been some things that have been part of steps to healing, to feeling better. Um, but it's also, this conversation is for those of you who are struggling, who don't feel good, maybe not due to COVID, but maybe because this year has been a stressful one, is leaving you feeling burdened physically, emotionally, spiritually. And we hope, we expect, because this is what happens in community, we find our own stories and the stories of each other. So, yes, we're going to talk about struggle and challenges because we want to keep it real and be honest. But you can count on hope. You can count on kind of a sense of tenderness and comfort in this next 45 minutes of conversation. And it'll be practical and tangible. Pardon as I get my nose going, practical and tangible tools and practices to navigate the ups and downs of life. So, with that, Becky, we're going to talk a bit, just share stories because, hello, storyteller series. And there's, Becky and I talked about, we're it's kind of like an open book. We've had lots of conversations over the last few months together, just the two of us. And we thought we'd welcome y'all in to the two of us having a conversation about life. So Becky, would you kick us off with just giving a context of what you, in the research you've done, know about this COVID long hauler syndrome, and what has been your personal experience of that?
Sure. Yeah, well, when you contract COVID, as most of everyone knows, there's a really wide range of how it impacts you during the illness of actually having the virus. Some people have mild cases, which I was one of the lucky people to have a very relatively mild case of COVID, where the symptoms are mild, no hospitalization is needed, and really virtually no medication or doctor's care. Okay. And then everything to then, of course, a severe case, hospitalization, and then even death. Now, I know Sarah was kind of in the middle there, where her case was more than mild, and she can tell you a little bit more about that. So, but my case was mild. Long haulers are people that after they get over the illness of the virus, meaning about 2 to 3 weeks worth of dealing with trying to get better. With your moderate to severe cases, of course, that would be longer, but typically with a mild to moderate case, couple 3 weeks, and then you're starting to feel better. But long haulers, what happens to them is their symptoms persist. And sometimes their symptoms appear to go away and they feel much better for a handful of days, or even maybe even a week or two, only to see those symptoms return. And the medical community is relatively stumped by this. Certainly, there is more and more information coming now, and it's actually really been a big part of the media right now. So you might have seen stories pop up on major media sites that have, looked at these studies of people like Sarah and myself who have experienced these what are called long haul symptoms, or we are long haulers. um, so that's really what it's about. I'm going to just spend maybe just a couple minutes talking about kind of what happened to me,
Yeah,
and
please
how
do.
how I knew I had COVID, and then how I was treated at the very beginning. And then I think it'd be great to have Sarah kind of talk a little bit about hers, because she and I had very different experiences. I know exactly when and where I contracted COVID. Okay. Um,
At a
I
sushi bar, right?
I was at a sushi bar. I was at a restaurant. And this is a place that's very familiar to my partner and I. We go a lot, but we had really only done takeout until this night. It was the first night we had actually gone to sit at the sushi bar. We had kind of noticed as we were picking up food that they really were doing a great job distancing tables and really staying safe. Okay, this is mid-July 2020, about 6 months ago. Um, but the night we decided to go, initially when we got there, hardly any people there, everything felt good. But then all of a sudden, it seemed there was this crowd that came in, and I think they were waiting for a large table. It was more of a big party of people. And I do recall like these poor managers trying to stop them from crowding. Okay. And Robert and I were sitting right there, and I remember feeling unsafe. Okay. So I know that's where I contracted it. All right. Because I just knew, even leaving, I even said to him as we were sitting there, we need to leave. This is not safe. And he said, well, but we just ordered our food. And so, lesson learned, just leave. Food is okay to just leave behind. Okay. But anyway, so a few days later, I started not feeling well, meaning that I was extremely tired, sleeping 12, 15 hours a day. Okay. And then had headaches, which are not typical for me at all. And a little tiny little bit of tickle in my throat, but nothing much. And then I remember you typically go for a walk every day for about 2 to 3 miles every morning, or, maybe 5 out of 7 days a week. But at the end of the walk, I remember saying, I don't think I can even finish this walk. I think you might have to go get the car. And wondering what in the heck is wrong with me. The next morning I woke up and I couldn't smell. Okay. So that was a classic symptom. We all already knew, even back in mid-July, that was a classic COVID symptom. So that morning we got tested, and I did test positive. So I knew that I had it as soon as I couldn't smell. I knew. So anyway, that's how I contracted it. My early symptoms were relatively mild. I have a very good doctor in that I was able to immediately have a telemedical conference with the doctor. And my test results hadn't even come back yet. And he said, right, I don't care what your test results say, you have it.
Yeah.
And here's what you need to do right away. Okay. Wow. And he said, you need to do all the things you would do if you had a bad case of the flu. You need to drink a lot of water. You need to eat chicken broth or chicken soup. You need to eat really good, healthy foods. And then he said, and now I'm going to tell you about a few things to do that are different. You need to take a baby aspirin once or twice a day. And this had to do with the fact that they were just discovering all of the blood clotting that was happening with COVID. And so he said, I just want you to do that right away. So he had a lot of he was really prepared. He also knows me well and knows I'm not into just getting medicine to fix anything.
Mm.
I'm much more of a natural healing type person. So he was giving me, teas and herbs and ideas for things that I could do. And, chicken soup, you know what I mean? In addition to just getting the sleep and drinking the water and all the other things. So that I believe was really helpful and helped me. I felt really strongly that my immune system rocked it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because within 10 days, I was feeling better. And so imagine my surprise when I became a long hauler, right? So anyway,
Right.
over to Sarah. I know you don't
Yeah.
really know where
So,
you contracted it, but yeah.
right. So, for me, I know I got tested in July for both the antigen test to see if I had an active COVID infection going on because I was feeling really cruddy. Um, that was negative, but I had a positive antibody test.
Which
That
is a
was in July, which is this blood test, which shows that I had COVID at some point. It's my my body rocked it, as Becky said, and mounted a immune response to COVID. So for me, the kind of mystery is I began being sick mid-December of 2019, very sick with respiratory bronchitis stuff, and really was very sick with that kind of crud between mid-December right until the end of February. I had a few moments where it kind of seemed to get better, and then it would get worse again. And in that time frame, I had the fatigue that Becky is talking about, insomnia, which is a very rare thing for me. My sleep pattern was really jacked up, and a, a couple of fainting, dizzy spells. One where I passed out for like a second as I was driving. It was very scary. And so in about February, at the end of February, I began getting, a CAT scan and a chest X-ray and getting an echocardiogram of my heart, seeing like what's going on with these crazy symptoms. And all of those things checked out fine. I, nothing troubling in any of these huge, significant screenings. My husband's a pediatrician, Brandon, and my dad, Pat, is a family medicine physician. And so I had my husband and my dad, these two men that love me and I love with all my heart, like worried and helping me navigate this kind of strange season. Between March and July, when I mentioned, was kind of this interesting couple month period of at times feeling relatively pretty good, and then I would have these dips where I would be just literally on the couch and so tired, and headaches and insomnia again, and this brain fog that Becky mentioned of it was kind of embarrassing sometimes. I think, Becky, you've mentioned that, where it's like I will be having a conversation or sitting down to my computer to do some work, and I'd be like, what was I trying to say? And what was I sitting here typing and doing? That was shocking to me. Humbling, scary. Um, yeah, a lot of uncertainty in much of the first half of 2020. So then when I had kind of another wave of illness in July, that's when I got tested for the antibody that showed that I indeed had it sometime in that time of illness of the first half of 2020. So the mystery remains great in terms of exactly when I had it, but what I do know is though Becky and I had very different onset of symptoms and experience of our COVID symptoms, our experience as long haulers, the ongoing kind of lingering pieces have had some very um, wild at times similarities. You know, we're
Mhm.
across the country. I'm here in Denver and Colorado, and she's in Florida. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to have this conversation with each other, with all of you, is that um, there are kind of unique, everyone has such unique experiences in their own experience with COVID, but then there are these rising numbers. I've seen between 10 and 30% of people that truly are long haulers, where they have, we don't know how long it will last. We don't know what makes it go away. So much uncertainty, but this confluence of symptoms that are very, a lot of shared experiences. So we wanted to share that with you in case you know someone or you yourself have that, because there is some solace in going, oh, yeah, that. Becky at one point was saying, which she would be laying in bed and she felt like this heaviness. It was like gravity had this extra, and she'd be laying in bed and her body was so heavy, like, you know, pressing down into the covers. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never would have had words for it. But yes, I have had that same
Yeah.
experience. So, a couple, again, not to just go off on crazy, crazy symptoms, but Becky, what would you say are a couple of the symptoms that you yourself have been experiencing in the days since, um, you know,
Yeah.
you no
Right.
longer had active
Yeah.
COVID?
Well,
Uh,
the most worrisome long term condition that
yeah.
I have is called POTS, which stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And that is, you're going to find that in the news as well. And that affects your heart. Okay. The tachycardia is basically your heartbeat pattern, for lack of a better phrase. Um, but really, it's a brain based disorder. It's a disorder in your autonomic nervous system. So it's the part of your brain that sends messages to your body, to your organs, as to what to do, how to function. Okay, that's probably my most sort of worrisome long hauler symptom, because it has impacted me so much in my ability to do physical things. Okay, so
Mhm.
basically, what it means is that when I do something aerobic, like I used to dance all the time, to just, just for fun. Okay. Not that I'm a dancer or anything, but just for fun. Right. And if I dance now, my heart is beating out of my chest and I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack. Not very good. Okay. So I have to be very careful with aerobic exercise. The good news is that oftentimes POTS symptoms can um, diminish with time. So, in other words, it may not be a lifelong issue, which is great, or it may not be as significant. It may diminish over time, which is great. Um, so that's something that impacts your life.
Yeah.
It impacts your livelihood. Um,
Yeah.
and what also happens sometimes with people with POTS is that when you change positions suddenly, like let's say you're sitting down and then all of a sudden you stand up, sometimes your blood pressure can drop, because again, your brain hasn't given the correct message to your heart that now you've changed positions, and so your circulation has to do something different.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I'm simplifying it so much, but it's
No, it's
basically
I
that's what it is.
yeah, and the thing that was so surprising to me, but also, as I said, it gave my heart some consolation to understanding why my whole body was feeling so cruddy was,
Yeah.
um, I read in an article where it said, generally COVID is impacts your respiratory system. It's it
Mm-hmm.
resides kind of in your chest and your um, but what happens in the post COVID for some people, not all, is that it's like almost like a bomb goes off in your body. and it begins expanding its impact into, yes, as Becky said, her brain, her central
Right.
nervous system, or
Yeah.
so I didn't have the headaches and um, the brain fog and some of these other very strange symptoms until after
Right.
um,
Me,
the
me,
onset.
myself as well. I mean,
Right.
in fact, I think it was 3 weeks after I had felt better that I had the first very, very significant symptoms of POTS. And when I told my doctor what had happened, I
Yeah.
gave him, like, the description. He said, "You know what? I think you have what this syndrome is called POTS." And he said, I just have this feeling that's what it is. And then he ordered, similar to what you had, a bunch of heart tests, which luckily did, showed that I didn't have myocardia, which would have been inflammation of the heart, which would have been much more serious.
Yeah.
Um, and but again, it was kind of this ruling out, and then finally, yeah, okay, this is what it is. So, but like you as well, Sarah. Like, I never had headaches.
Yeah.
I can probably count the number of headaches I had on one hand my entire life before this. So, what was really hard was the constant recurring headaches, and then the brain fog. The For those of us who are reliant on our brain and kind of see our brain as a strength,
Hmm.
which has been me, and I'm sure you as well. This really displaces us. Okay, it unmoors us.
Mm.
It really, we feel like, I will often be talking to my partner and I will use a different word than I mean.
Right.
And it's related
Right.
usually. Okay. Like, I may say Wednesday and I meant Friday, but it's a day of the week. Okay.
Right. Right.
But anyway, and then I'll almost like have this like little recording and go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to say that word." He goes, "That's okay. I knew what you meant."
Right.
And but that happens a lot. Then of course, word retrieval issues, memory issues,
Hmm.
the no longer the ability to multitask like
Hmm.
I used to be able to.
Me too on that one.
Yeah, and then also just attention, focused attention
Hmm.
on a task that needs that focus,
Mm.
really tough. Um, and that's something that I've always been able to make my brain do. Never
Right.
questioned it. So what
Right.
we do know about COVID is it inflames the brain. Okay, the virus did not go to my lungs; it went to my brain.
Hmm.
Okay, my first clue would have been loss of smell and taste. That's a brain-based sense.
Action. Yeah.
Okay. Then they're also discovering that COVID has an effect on the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, there's two branches of the vagus nerve, but basically, the vagus nerve is part of your cranial nerve system, and its function is to communicate with your organs.
Mm.
So that's what makes sense then with the tachycardia and all this autonomic nervous system stuff. I mean, I was even at times having trouble swallowing.
Yeah.
Okay, which is, again, it's something we don't think about. It's automatic.
Yep.
Breathing, swallowing, our heartbeat, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so I think that when I get a return of symptoms, and I just had some yesterday, what happens is I get a ring of fire around my cranium right here. And that what that means is that I don't show that I have a temperature, but if I feel right here, it's hot. And I can feel the pressure. I can actually feel that there's inflammation. Um, and so then
Mm.
typically I'll have some headaches. I often will have then some insomnia return. Unlike Sarah, I've struggled with sleep issues for a long time, but my sleep issues post COVID have been ridiculous. I mean, just very difficult. So,
Yeah.
but um, so those are things that I think impact Like any chronic disease, some of you listening probably are people that have chronic health challenges, may or may not be COVID related, but things that will come and go.
Yeah.
You'll have back pain's a perfect example. You'll have back pain for a while, and you'll do some physical therapy, you'll do some resting, stretching, give it some time, and then it'll dissipate for a while, and then it'll come back. Anybody that has RA, rheumatoid arthritis, knows about chronic health issues. Okay, any kind of autoimmune disorder. But when you develop those and you have to manage them, it really does change your lifestyle, yes, but it also kind of changes a bit of your identity, and especially you and I have talked about our brains are, we never knew how valuable their function was until they started to have glitches. you know and
Totally.
yeah, and COVID affects both structure and function of the brain. So it affects not only the brain chemistry, which is the function,
Mhm.
but also brain structure, which is your neurons, which is your connections. Okay, so it affects both. I mean, just the fact that it affects a major cranial nerve, doctors really haven't ever seen anything like this. And they're just learning about it. And I think we are an important part of
Mhm.
that learning for them.
Yep.
Um, some of the resources that Sarah has on her blog and will be part of the resources listed are about different areas of the country that are doing studies,
Yep.
on post COVID long haulers, that kind of thing. And so,
And
but
Becky and I do want to make sure that you hear that in the write-up. We
mhm,
have a link to ever-growing list of COVID resources. And there's articles and podcasts and books and a couple helpful infographics on what to do. How do you know if you have it? How do you heal from it? If you guys have more resources to send us, send it to me and I'll add it. It can be that's how this
maybe
community
an
works.
ever growing
Ever
list.
growing
Right,
list, right?
right.
So that
Yeah,
link is in the write-up. Don't miss it.
yeah.
Um, Becky, is there anything else you want to make sure you touch on the physiological part of your
Um,
experience?
I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot more that I experience just like you. I don't need to go through that laundry list. But that I think it's okay for us now to shift towards, like, how do we respond? You know,
Yeah.
how do we navigate new waters in a new boat?
Well, I mean, I love how you said, Becky, it's so right on the sense of um, being unmoored,
Mhm.
the sense of, and truly, um, are what I would love to kind of reach through this computer and share with y'all is a twofold thing. And I do not say this haphazardly, but for me, this has been a gift
Mhm.
at times. It's
Mhm.
been a terribly uncomfortable one, and one that I have fought, and one that has brought me great pain and struggle at times. But there have been gifts of how to navigate, um,
Yeah.
find a compass, find a hope, find some ways to dig deep and be moored deeply, even before the healing comes, even before I feel better, even before there's understanding. And so what Becky and I want to do is take a few minutes and talk about what have been some Becky used this word compass as we were talking about preparing for this. Like the compass for you, Becky, like how have you navigated and made your way um, in your soulful, spiritual kind of
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of who you are. Your body, your mind, and your spirit are connected. All of
Right.
ours are, but yours are intentionally so. So what
Well,
would you say are a couple of practices or a couple of tools that for
yeah.
you have been a gift?
hmm Well, I think that that it's first of all very important to allow yourself to grieve and to be
Yeah.
frustrated and to be sad. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday I cried because I had such terrible symptoms. Today I feel a lot better, but it's okay to do that because you've got to let that
Yeah.
out.
Thank
And
you. That's so
yeah.
good.
And then I think also what's really important is to look at what what could be your guides, what could be
Mm,
your guideposts, let's say, for kind of navigating this new journey. Okay, for me personally, I think there are three things that I sort of reached out to and grabbed
mm.
that were especially helpful for me. And I can tell you a little bit about those, but it may be very different for you or you or you, okay? Because
Right.
you've got to kind of know what do you really believe in and really are interested in and have a passion about,
Mm,
okay?
that's so good.
So, one of the best guides and mentors that I found is Dr. Dan Siegel, who's a neurobiologist.
That's in our link, by the
And
way,
it's in
y'all.
our
So check
link.
that
It's
out.
in our link. He's an author of several books on interpersonal neurobiology. And I had already started taking his online course.
Mm,
And so it just was very timely. But basically, what he says in a nutshell is that, our brain's natural drive is toward integration and
mm,
healing. Okay. So, as something assaults you, like the virus or a chronic autoimmune disorder,
or
or
just worry, or
life
I gotta
in
work.
general, it could be a
Yeah.
trauma, could be a
Yeah.
trauma of any type. Okay. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, a trauma that's going to impact your mind.
Mhm.
Okay. Your mind, your brain, however you want to say that. The mind and brain are different. But so, anyway, he has this concept of mindsight, and there's this tripod which kind of stabilizes kind of how we pick up energy and how it we process it and where it flows
Mm,
in our bodies, our brain, our energy. Okay. And so the three prongs of the tripod are openness, which is when we approach an experience with receptivity and we're willing to
mm,
be fully present and participate in the experience. We try not to have any preconceived expectations, but in fact remain open. So,
mm.
openness. Then, objectivity, okay, trying to be objective, and then also being observant. So, three O's: openness, objectivity, and observant. So,
Oh,
though
that's
that
really
really
good.
helped me tremendously because whenever something would come, I would just kind of say, well, what is this? What's this trying to teach me? What am I supposed to be learning here? And
Mm,
how am I going to shift? Okay. And sometimes that openness begins with sensation. It just begins with your senses taking in something. So um, I also liked how he says that your expectations can be, in a sense, a kind of prison. They can
mm.
imprison you. Okay. And even our expertise can be a prison of the past, which is just
Wow.
specifically resonated with me because part of my expertise is early brain development. And I'm so interested in the brain. Okay. And how children develop and how our sensory experiences impact the brain. But it's just sometimes our expectations are knowns, what we think we know, what we're sure we know.
Yeah.
And we need to really be open to a new experience, challenging that and shifting it. Doesn't we mean we have to throw it all out, but certainly we might have to shift that. So
Oh
that
my
so
gosh. I don't have time to explain why, but exclamation point on that. That has been
mhm.
at times my great struggle. Like, no, this is how I do things. This is who I am.
Mhm, mhm.
This is what I was planning, you
That's
know.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
And the gift of just yeah,
Yeah.
surrender. And anyway, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
So that was one thing. The other thing, and I know we got to keep looking at time, but the other thing is was um, a a book that I read by Sharon Blackie called The Enchanted Life, and then I started taking her online courses as well in Celtic mythology and basically Sharon Blackie is from the UK. She's a writer, a mythologist, a psychologist, and so she really helped me in terms of again being another guide, just
Mm,
her material, the reading, the meditation. She does a lot of guided meditations, where her whole idea is that you've got to reconnect to nature. You have to reconnect to your place where you are and just pay attention, observe
are you
what.
looking out at your oak tree?
Yeah, I'm looking out at my I have incredible fortune to live on a small lake here in Florida that has some live oaks and some other natural brush
Birds.
and the shorebirds that come into my yard are, you know, egrets, herons, cormorants. I mean, it's just incredible, to say nothing of the songbirds that
Mm,
come to my window and talk to me. They really do. They talk to me, and I watch them and observe their mannerisms, their habits, and I learn. Okay, so Sharon Blackie, Dan Siegel, those two, and then the other piece is your own creative expression. Okay,
yes.
I had just begun before the pandemic hit to go to Open Studio with an Expressive Arts Florida group. Actually, it's called Expressive Arts Florida, and they're now doing it online via Zoom. And so I continue to do that. And I am not a visual artist at all. I can do collage, I can maybe do a little watercolor abstract, okay? But what I can do is write. I'm a writer. And so I find that just exploring collage, exploring different media, exploring just even doing different types of writing, okay, has incredibly helped me. I mean, it's made me more creative, more imaginative, and it's made me more wise. That makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
that is the third pillar for me is
Mm.
expressive arts.
And you have written much of your next book during
Yeah,
this,
during
as
this.
have I. And Becky and I had this moment where when we were talking, um, I have definitely experienced, because I started my book before I got sick. And then the crucible, as I say, of 2020 got really hot. And there have been moments where, as I've been working on the home stretch of this next book, I have sat back with tears in my eyes and goosebumps on my skin, saying, I would not have crafted this story were it not for this struggle.
Absolutely.
Um,
Exclamation point. Yes.
so when we say the gift of this struggle, it is not haphazard. It is not airy fairy, rainbows and fairies.
Hmm.
It is out of the grit and out of the struggle, and really grappling for me with coming to the end of myself, the end of my capacity, the end of my what I thought, what you were saying back of the expectation. And when I did come to the end, I have found a profound gift that I think I will unpack for the rest of my life.
Right. Yep.
So what Becky and I do want to do as we come to the end of this conversation is to not just talk about the importance of creativity and mindfulness and prayer and meditation, but just to have a moment, 2 minutes or less, people. So stick with us, especially if that freaks you out, because whether you yourself are in a place of struggle or you know someone who is, sometimes that can be the hardest time to be still, because there's pain sometimes when we slow down. But trust me, there is gift in the stillness. There is gift in healing, in being and breathing, and just allowing yourself to stop for a moment. So, wherever you are, we're going to invite you to pause. If you're bustling about, just pause, standing where you are or plopping down in a seat. And I'm going to read an excerpt from my book, Soulfully Ablaze, that has these 40 places of pause. And I write about places of pause because, dang it, I need them, and it doesn't come. It's something I have to be very intentional about. Otherwise, I just buzz and whirl and whoosh too much. So, wherever you are, settle into your seat, feel your feet on the ground. If you're not driving, close your eyes and be still. Surrender. Take a breath and take whatever is hard, whatever worries you may be carrying, whatever thoughts that are fluttering. Inhale and exhale, and imagine exhaling them away. Truly imagine that you are breathing them away and that you are inhaling peace, softness, soul care, and tender love. Yes, my friend, be held in tender love. Beck, are you going to
Yep. And then
carry us?
I think I'd like to just say to open a door. And as you open the door, you see some mist that you can part gently with your fingers. And then you notice a place that's a sanctuary for you. It's probably a place outdoors, maybe a place of your childhood where you can feel completely safe. And you revel, you look around to all these familiar landforms, trees, stones, animals, bits of moss, whatever's there. And you revel in it and you realize that you are safe and that you are loved and that you are whole and that you can come to this place anytime you wish to pause and to be still. And I think that we talked also, Sarah, about having a word at the very end to leave everyone with. And I'm going to just pick up one of my heartstones. And the word on this heartstone is power. And I think power is such a wonderful concept for us to leave with because within all of us, we are imbued with power. And we can use that power to grow and to learn and to make way.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So, friends, before we wrap up, if your eyes were closed, go ahead and open them up. And for those that went through that and that's outside of your comfort zone, well done. High five. Props to you. And Becky and I want to invite you to return and to take a few of the practices she shared. Pop on a piece of music you love to be still with, to dance with, and just to practice connecting with your creativity, your soul, your heart, and just also moments of being still, to restore, to rejuvenate, to fill up, to cry, to do whatever you need to do to navigate this wild ride that is life. So we want to invite you to just think of one thing from this conversation that you are taking with you that you want to practice this week. To think about, yes, and to also imagine, it's like practicing it is making it more tangible as you walk through your days of your life. So, what is one thing? Is it sharing this video? Is it having some moments of pause, a place of pause yourself? Is it having a conversation with someone? Whatever the thing is, maybe looking at one of the resources that Becky shared of these incredible people that have companioned and encouraged her. But do it. Do it. And our invitation is that it's inspired action. It's not a should or I've got to. It's like truly something that will lighten your load and bring light to your life. Because we do believe these stories, as we listen to them and weave them into each of our stories, it just makes life better. So don't go without the inspired action part. Don't just listen and close the laptop or turn off your phone, but find one way to plant the seed of a story from today into your life. And let us know how it goes. So Becky, I want to say thank you, my dear sister, for sharing your story, your experience, your tools, your compass with us. You are a gift. And I wish for you healing, full, whole healing in the year of 2021. Really today, I'm going to say.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah. And to all of you guys watching, our hearts are with you. Becky and I want to close by saying you are loved. You belong. We belong to each other. So let's stand tall together and light up 2021. Light up the world. Love you guys.
Indeed.